Hey listeners, welcome back to another episode of Let's Think Green. I'm Ria, the host of the podcast, and it's been a while since we've uploaded an episode, but don't worry, we're back now. Today, we'll be thinking and talking about water quality and urban runoff. Before I even get talking about water quality, the first thing I want to mention is that there are tons of rivers, streams, lakes, and ponds in your community. Not all of them are in well-maintained parks, and you may not even see them while you're driving around the neighborhood, but they're there. The second thing is that you can't judge the water quality of a water body simply by looking at it. I am an adopted stream volunteer, so I regularly conduct bacteria and chemical tests on a creek in my community. In that creek, one day it looked beautiful. The vegetation surrounding the creek was fresh and the water was clear and seemingly clean. So I took some samples, conducted a bacteria test on the water, and the next day when the test results came, I found out that the E. coli levels were well past 1000 CFU/100 milliliters. The levels so high that they warranted an investigation. So we contacted our local authorities, who then conducted an investigation and found out that the reason this clean and beautiful looking lake was so dirty and contaminated was because of an overflowing sanitary sewer. You can't tell if a river is clean just by looking at it. Okay, now let's get into water quality. You may be wondering, what exactly is water quality? Well, according to the U.S. Geological Survey, water quality refers to the, I quote, the suitability of the water for a particular use based on physical, chemical, and biological characteristics. This means that each water body, each river, lake, stream, and pond has its own specific usage based on a variety of factors. So that could mean for recreational purposes such as fishing or swimming or drinking water. Water bodies that have low water quality that don't meet the state's water quality standards are considered impaired for that reason and because they can't meet their designated function. An impaired water body doesn't serve the local community nor the surrounding ecosystem, and it even can harm aquatic life and native vegetation. So, low water quality is a big problem that needs to be addressed. There are various factors that cause water contamination, but the biggest reason for low water quality, and the reason we'll be delving in today, is urban runoff. This is a term you've probably heard a lot before, but the impact of urban runoff cannot be undermined. Urban runoff is water that has moved across impervious surfaces such as roads and parking lots, and it eventually ends up in rivers and other water bodies. Urban runoff occurs when the ground is not able to soak up all of this liquid, so instead it just moves across the surface. As communities become more urbanized, the amount of pervious surfaces such as grass and lawns is decreasing, and the amount of impervious surfaces such as roads and parking lots are increasing, meaning the amount of urban runoff that is occurring is gradually increasing. Since these impervious surfaces cannot soak up all the water, most of the liquid moves across the surface, and as it does, it gathers toxic chemicals and sediments and oil and fertilizers and pesticides and bacteria from pet waste. Basically, all those chemicals that are on roads and on your lawns, it's picking that up along the way, and eventually it dumps all of those things into the river. Urban runoff also introduces excessive fertilizers into ecosystems. So I mentioned earlier that urban runoff also carries fertilizer into rivers. Those fertilizers have a lot of nitrogen in them, and when that fertilizer enters a river ecosystem, then it's increasing the amount of nitrogen in that water body, levels that are too high for the ecosystem and for the organisms in the ecosystem. These excessive nutrients can cause algae blooms, which is the rapid growth of microscopic algae or algae-like bacteria on the surface. If you've ever seen like just huge clumps of really green mushy stuff on the surface of the ocean or a river, then it most likely is an algae bloom. Algae blooms are really bad for local ecosystems because they cause this rapid growth of algae. And the algae covers the surface of the water body, so it prevents light from penetrating the surface. Plants below the algae and other producers are not able to conduct photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is the process of converting solar energy into glucose and usable energy. And then if producers are not able to conduct photosynthesis, then that means that organisms that get their energy from these producers, from these plants, are not able to get the energy that they need. Algae blooms can also cause something called dead zones. So when the algae dies, decomposers come in and break it down, and they consume a lot of the oxygen in the water body. This depletes the oxygen supply, killing organisms. Urban runoff can also cause thermal pollution. As urban runoff moves across the land, it gathers speed, and the speed causes the temperature of the water to increase. So when that runoff enters a water body, it's much warmer than the temperature of the river or of the water body itself. So it can increase the temperature of the water body, which can negatively impact vegetation and organisms who are used to the water being of a much cooler temperature. And you may be feeling what can I do? This is not good at all. And of course, human activity is the major reason why urban runoff is happening. But you can do something about it. The first thing you can do is, if there's debris, specifically grass clippings, on your driveway or lawn, instead of using a hose or a leaf blower to get it down a storm drain, sweep the trash, lawn clippings into a paper yard bag. If your parents hire someone to cut the grass in your yard, then maybe see if how they dispose of the lawn clippings. And maybe you can see if there's a way that, if they're not doing it in an environmental friendly way, in an urban runoff preventing way, then maybe talk to them and see if there's a way that they can do it in a way that will not contribute to urban runoff. The second thing is, you probably heard this a lot, but dispose of pet waste correctly. If you want to have a really big impact in your local community against urban runoff and working to ensure that the water bodies in your community have high water quality, then you can become an Adopt a Stream volunteer if your state or county offers it. But more about that next episode. Well, that is it for today. I hope you enjoyed this episode and learned something new. If you did, then share this episode with a friend, and don't forget to leave us a review on Apple Podcast. See you all next week. Bye.